Hey, this is Rob Anspach, and welcome back to eHeroes. Now, for all you entrepreneurs that are at home working, I brought on an expert, Kevin Eikenberry, to talk to you about being better at what you do, especially leadership from your home office. So, welcome, Kevin, and thanks for being here.
It's a pleasure to be here. And you're right. That's the world that many of us are living in, whether we like it or not, whether we wanted it or not. And there's going to come a time, Rob, when our the powers that be aren't going to tell us we must, right?
Right.
And I think that even that's worth talking about, because I think a lot of folks may think I want to take it back to the way it once was, and we can talk about it. But I'm not sure that that's necessarily what will happen, or even necessarily what you want to have happen.
Right. And for me, I have associates that are in Canada, in LA, and Arizona, and some of them I have never met face to face. I've done everything through Zoom. I've done everything through email, through chat, and so for me, it's weird because they're not in front of me. I can't say, "Hey, go do this. This is how I want you to do it." I just have to hope they get it right.
Well, hopefully we do a good job of having clear communication, clear expectations. But you're right; it does really require us to have a higher level of trust. And some entrepreneurs, let's just be honest, you know, aren't good at that, right? They aren't good at letting go of the tasks. No one can do this as well as me. I've got the picture of what success is and all that, and so that in itself is a barrier
Well,
for
I know
many leaders,
yeah.
entrepreneurs, and leaders in general.
Well, it took me a long time to know that I can't do it all. And yes, there are things that I can do very well, and for me to overlook, to kind of look over someone's shoulder and say you're not doing it right, doesn't really do anything for me. I mean, for me, if I do that, I'm babysitting them all day long, and I'm not getting my own stuff done. So you know, I had to let
Completely
go.
right. Completely right. I mean, unfortunately there have been people, and thankfully it's not. I don't think it's a huge percentage, but there have been people that have used technology to look over people's shoulder and keystrokes and all that other kind of stuff. And if any of you that are watching or listening are there, please stop.
Yeah,
You've got bigger problems if that's what you're trying to do. We need us to do a better job of being clear about what's the outcome that we need, and making that clear and observable,
yeah,
and letting people know that there's almost always more than one way to get there.
right.
And so it's our job as a leader to know what the there is, and then give people the space to come up with a way that might actually be better than your way to get there.
Early on in my consulting career, people would say, "Hey, Rob, here's our calendar. This is what we want you to do. Check off everything when you get done, and here's a time frame." And I'm thinking that doesn't work for me. It just does. And so every time someone says, "Hey, Rob, can you join our Asana? Can you join our base camp? Can you?" I'm like, "No, I don't do that in my own company. I don't want to do it in your company. I don't want to be micromanaged." So I have to say to my associates, to my team, I'm not going to micromanage you. This is what I want to happen. Do it on your own time. Do it, do it how you want. I just want results.
Yeah, so I've got no dog in the fight, whether it's Trello or Asana or
Yeah.
Basecamp or whatever. I will say this: there are ways to use those tools that aren't micromanaging, right? And your point is a good one. That oftentimes that's what they end up being
Yeah.
used for. So
Yeah. And what would occur is I wouldn't follow the directions because, I just don't. So they'd come back to me and said, "Well, Rob, you didn't check off this, and this. We know that you did the job and we like the results, but you didn't go." I'm like, "Dude, I'm not getting paid to do all that." So,
maybe
yeah,
you have the wrong consultant, if that's the most important piece, right?
right. So, when it comes to, my team, I try to give them latitude, but, I look at other companies and I see their employees at home, and Sometimes I'll ask him, "Hey, how are you doing?" Because my neighbor works from home and he works for a big insurance company, and he'll say, "Yeah, they don't really send me any work. I got to go do it myself. I got to do this. I got to do that." And he goes, "I think I prefer working in the office." He says, "Then I can chat with people. I can feel motivated. I can get free coffee." I'm like, dude, you can get coffee at home. But it just seems like all these excuses why you have to go to the office when, for me, working from home, I get more done in 3 hours than most of these guys probably get done in a whole month.
Yeah. Well, I think the future is that it's going to be a very flexible world, right?
Yeah,
So the reality is that at one point most people went to an office or went to a space to work, and right now, of course, many are not.
right,
By the time this comes out on the podcast, and I don't know when people are going to watch or listen. The reality is that all could have changed. But here's what I believe the future will hold: that we're going to, as leaders and entrepreneurs and business owners, we're going to have to be more flexible about how we allow work to get done. Because if we're not willing to be flexible, both for the guy who wants to come back, but more frequently for the people that want to stay at home most of the
right,
time, um, we're going to have a talent drain, right? Like it used to be that the number one perk that people wanted was the chance to work from home occasionally.
hmm,
That's not going to be seen as a perk in the future.
no,
It's going to be seen as, if you're not giving me that chance, then likely I'm not going to give you a chance to hire me, right? And so I think that we have to get past, Rob, some of that earlier stuff we talked about getting past our need to micromanage or our need to have our fingers in every piece, or to feel like we have to see people. Now,
right,
to your neighbor's point, there is a big need. There is a social need. There is a need for connection. There is all of those things. And, in a pre pandemic world, most people had a close friend, sometimes in many cases, a best friend at work.
yeah,
And so we have to recognize as leaders, and I believe that's a positive thing, right? That it isn't like, I can't have them being friends. They got to be working. I believe those are not mutually exclusive. And
right,
in fact, the better we have, the better working relationships we have, the more productivity, more efficiency, and everything else that we will get. But we're going to have to continue to help our team members. And we're going to need to, as leaders, encourage and model relationship building if we're
right.
not back together.
And I understand the need for going to an office. You get to know people, you get to know their families, you get to know everything about them. So when it comes time to bonuses or Christmas parties or whatever event that you want to have, you can be more personalized, and that employee can feel, hey, he really cares, or that company really cares. Being at home, they don't get to know you. You're just becoming another number, and so
Well,
you lose that personalization.
I would say, from the book that we wrote a couple of years ago called The Long Distance Leader, that while that's probably true, it doesn't have to be, right? And that I believe that as leaders, part of our job when our team is remote, and I've had a remote team for a decade, is that we have to intentionally work to build those relationships. It will never be quite the same because there will be fewer interactions, right, than there were before. We're not bumping each other in the hallway, seeing it, walk into our cars in the parking lot together, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
But as leaders, it's part of our responsibility to maintain the best parts of that, which is to make sure that we're getting to know people and that they're getting to know us, and that we're building something other than just transacting business. And if we as leaders don't do that, that will be at our peril as well, because long term we'll have a hard time keeping the talent that we want
oh yeah,
in that regard as
yeah.
well.
One of the things that my neighbor kind of sparked on is, he goes, when I went to the office, I really didn't get on social media. Everything was hyper focused on getting work done. Now that I'm at home, I kind of have lazy time where I'm on social media, and I have to kind of worry about what I'm going to say or post. He says, because now my bosses are constantly looking at what I do.
Well, it's a different set of distractions, right? Here's the thing: when we went to the office, we were going to a place that, however effective it was or not, was designed for working. And now we're working from a place that was designed for living and not working, right? Even if you have a separate office space, it's still in your house and or whatever, right? So that's a reality that we have to keep in mind. And so there are different distractions, right? You made the comment earlier, and I can get more done in a short time, and that's true for many people some of the time. There were lots of people that were very very productive when they worked from home one day a week or occasionally, right? Because what they did then was they didn't interact with anybody else and they were just truly being an individual contributor. But if we need our team members to be a part of a team, to be a teammate, right, which is to be invested in and connected to and engaged with our team members, our teammates, then we can't just hole up and go be a hermit, right? We still have to interact with people. And so I think what happened for a lot of people is they went home and they became far more insular and for a while became more productive, or on the what they call their work, which is my task list, they were productive, but the overall productivity of the organization isn't necessarily growing.
Right. Now you mentioned teammates, and I think your new book focuses on teammates.
You are so correct. Here it is, Rob. The new book is The Long Distance Teammate. Stay engaged and connected while working anywhere. And so we believe that there's a big difference, and this is what I was just saying. There's a big difference between working from home
Mhm.
and being a teammate, right? If my work is individual, if you're even if you've got folks on that work with you that are gig workers and they just see themselves as I'm just here to do this stuff,
Mhm.
at some level you want them to interact with others, and if they're not, they may be getting their work done, but are they getting the team's work done? Are
Right.
they contributing? Are they collaborating? Are they participating? Are they mentoring others? All those things that you might want them to do. That the longer we do this, the more likely it is that people start to put the blinders on and shorten their time horizon.
Yeah.
And our job as leaders to help them know that we still need them to be an engaged member of the team. We still
Right.
want them to be that. And it's okay. It was okay in the office to walk down the hall with your coffee cup and chat for 3 minutes,
Right.
right? If you didn't think that was all right, we have a whole other set of problems. But so there's no reason that still can't happen, right? There's no reason that you can't uh, reach out to someone when you're having your one-on-one or just at any point and make sure that you're spending 2 3 4 minutes on that stuff before you get to the work part. When we bring new people on our team, it's part of the task that we expect people to spend 30 minutes on a Zoom call with every other member of the team, not talking about work, because we want to start off and set the expectation that there's more here than just the work. And in fact, when they build those relationships, the work will go better anyway.
You know, my last book, Rob versus Humanity, was kind of born out of the whole pandemic thing, and it's my sarcastic take on dealing with lousy customer service. And it just seemed like the more people that were at home fielding calls from their companies that they should have been in some call center. I mean, the service was so lousy. Even if if you could actually get a human on the phone, and you'd hear dog barking in the back, you'd hear kids crying. I mean, it was just yeah, I can expect some of that, but these people are supposed to be empowered to give you the right answer, and they just didn't care.
Well, here's the thing: if you had a strong organizational culture and good relationships before you had to send everybody home, things probably went way better
Right.
than if you didn't, right? All that remote work when we had to go there in an instant, like we did last year, all that did was show us the strength of the fabric, right, or the weakness of the fabric of our organizations, without question. So, to the degree that that's true, and people aren't feeling empowered and can't look over, to get some immediate feedback from a supervisor, that's why it became more frustrating, right?
Yeah.
For you, but also likely for the person on the other end of the phone, right? They don't feel like they can have any empowerment to do anything or to
Oh,
answer any real questions or to really help you make progress.
people liked the book. They thought it was funny, but it's weird when you have to live through this, and everybody knew about it. I mean, everybody was experiencing the same pains that I was, and so when you read the book, you're like, "Ah, this is just funny because I know it's happening to me, but I don't think it's acceptable. But, people say, "Well, it's the pandemic." It's not an excuse.
Well, we got to be careful about that, right? Because a lot of people are all saying, "Well, I want to just forget 2020, erase it, and move on." Man, there are many things that happened that we would hope never are repeated. But there's a tremendous amount of lessons that we can take from it, right? Even if in your organization you're going to bring everybody back,
Mhm. So what
right?
do you do in your
There's a tremendous
organization?
number of lessons we can take. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, what do you do in your organization to build team to kind of build that team, uh, kind of that superhero team that you want?
Well, there's a lot of things that we do, and one of them, like I said, is on
One
onboarding.
is buy the book, right?
Well, long distance leader, or excuse me, long distance teammate, longdistanceteammate.com. But no, one of the things that's really important is I said it from this a few minutes ago. When we're onboarding new people, it's the expectation, and it's probably the single thing that I'm most watching and checking on, and that is within the first 2 weeks, you're going to talk with every other person on the team, and you're going to have a conversation other than work. Preferably on the camera, so
Mhm.
that you can start to get to know that person.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that we do. Another thing that I make sure that when we have team meetings, and our team is there's 13 of us, just to give people context, spread out across the United States. Uh, we have contract trainers and stuff in other places, but in terms of the team,
Mhm.
that's the team. And and so I make sure that when we have meetings, that we're doing more than just meeting. We're more than just transacting the business. So we had a meeting last Friday, and the first thing on the agenda was some fun. And so we did a little exercise, we had a little fun, and I actually believe that one of the metrics for our meetings ought to be: is there any laughter? If there's no laughter, then we're missing something, right? We can conduct important, serious business. We can be highly efficient and productive, but if we're not engaging in ways that allow us to enjoy each other at some level, that's a problem. And that's got to start with us. So as leaders, we've got to be modeling that in the meeting. But when I mentioned earlier, Rob, when I have one-on-ones with my folks, almost always start with what's going on, how are you doing, how's the family, whatever specifics then. But fundamentally, I'm going to do all that stuff. I'm going to work on being empathetic, understanding, and encouraging before we get to the work. Because if I do the work part first, we don't have time for that other stuff.
Right.
And so I'm modeling that this still matters, everybody. And so those are 3 or 4 things that we do
So
all the
was
time.
it always that way with you, or did it? How did you come up with these concepts to help you out?
Well, I've been working with leaders and leadership for 30 years, right? So I've tried really hard to model the things that I think are important and that we've seen working elsewhere. So many of the things that I've just described, we've been doing for a long time. So that made us better prepared, perhaps, for last March
Hmm.
than March of 2020 than perhaps some other people. But I just continue to see my work with my team as a laboratory. What do I need to do? What do we need to move forward? And the other piece to this I would say to all of you is don't just listen to me or buy, the long distance leader or the long distance teammate. Well, do buy those
Do
books.
buy them.
But what I'm saying is this is don't just try to come up with all the answers. Ask your team, hey guys, we've been at this for 9 months now. Where are you stuck? Where are you having trouble? What can I do differently to help us get better? What do you need from each other that we're not getting right now? So open up the conversation about all that with your team, and that will help develop your team's superpower to still be connected and engaged, even though they don't see each other the way they
Right.
used to.
One of the things that I like to teach my audience is kind of be a prepper. I mean, yeah, we've heard this before. All the prep and kind of buy the groceries and this and that and the canvases and the lights but the
The
thing is,
toilet paper, apparently.
oh, yeah, toilet paper too. And kind of have a couple months supply of everything. But the thing is, we also have to prep for our business. We have to have Plan B manuals. We have to have leadership manuals. We have to have all this stuff in place because if something happens to you as a leader, someone needs to be able to step in and just kind of open the book and say, okay, in this situation, this is what you're going to do. And it has to be what I say, stupidly simple. Because if that next person in line doesn't really know your job, they kind of should know your job if they've been with you for a while. They just open that book and say, oh, okay, this is what I got to do. and within a day's time, they have an idea of how to be like you in that situation. And but you know what? A lot of people do not prep. They do not prepare, and then they wait until. I mean, nobody prepared for a pandemic, but you could have at least prepared for at least 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, and I would say that I agree with all that, Rob. And I would say this, that as painful and as challenging as some of that might have been, step back and think about how adaptable your team really was when the time actually came. And you
Right.
said, "Hey, we got to be out of here in 36 hours," and they did figure out how to make it work. And
Mhm.
two lessons: one is when people really understand the big picture, they can adapt. And two is maybe we could have done some things that would have helped that go easier,
Right.
right? The manuals, the prepping that you're talking about. But I think all of that matters a
Yeah.
lot. Yep.
Yeah. So let's go back 30 years. What started you off?
Well, I grew up on a farm. If you can't see them up there, but up there you see some of my antique tractor, toy tractor collection. I grew up on a farm and went to college in agriculture to study how to grow things
Grow things.
and manage agricultural systems.
Mhm.
And now I grow people and help organizations lead human systems. And so I grew up like I said, on a farm and in a farm business, so I always had an entrepreneurial bent. Worked in major corporations for about 8 years. Left to start my company, and that was almost 28 years ago.
Mhm.
And Rob started on it was just Kevin, right?
Yeah.
So people say, "Well, what are you doing?" I say, "I have a consulting firm." They say, "How long have you been looking for a job?" Right? Which really was never quite the case. But for a number of years now, I've had a team, and we're helping leaders. At last count, 43 countries around the world, helping them be more effective. And a lot of that work, although not all, is around remote work. So we're excited to do the work we get to do every day. And I'm certainly excited about this new book, The Long Distance Teammate. People can learn more by going to longdistanceteammate.com. There's all sorts of free resources that come in the book. And if you order a book now and you go there, you'll learn more about it. You can get some free bonuses for you and your team. Buy copies for everybody in your team and get some bonuses that are worth way more than the price of the book.
Well, you have other materials and products on your website as well.
Yeah, we got lots of stuff, and people can certainly learn more by going to remarkableleader.com. They can go to kevineikenberry.com and do those things. So lots of stuff for leaders and teams to help them be more effective, get the results they're really trying to get, and make a bigger difference in the world.
I live in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and there's farms all around us, mostly Amish
I
farms.
love Lancaster County,
And
actually.
but I look at the Amish and the way they're raised, the way they work, they're just natural born leaders. They'll just go, hey, I need this done, and next thing you know, they got a barn built, and so it's
That's a
kind of
whole other
fascinating.
episode. We could have that conversation in another episode, Rob. Um, about the fact that we redid the barn where I grew up for my son's wedding.
Uh,
But that's so I've got lots we could talk about, but we don't have time for all that
oh
today.
no, but the thing is that from that farm boy, you turned into this consultant leader who's teaching other leaders, which is fascinating. I mean, this year will be the 20th year of Anspach Media, which is kind of cool. But it started out in 1995. My not Anspach Media started out in 1995, but I started out in I had this carpet cleaning business that I started in 95, and by 2001, I had started the consulting on the side. I'm thinking I'm just going to do a couple sideline jobs and do this, but the carpet cleaning I had I ended up selling in 2014. But in 2001, 9/11 happened, and I kind of put the consulting business on hiatus because everybody was in panic mode, just like kind
Yep.
of 2020 is with the pandemic. And I concentrated on cleaning. And I built that business. I had employees. It was great, but I was in a local atmosphere. When I started doing consulting, and this is just as the internet was starting to blow up,
Mhm.
I knew that I wanted to be out beyond in my local area. And now all my clients are everywhere but Lancaster County, which is kind of cool. So um, I love doing what I do. I love helping businesses. Am I a natural born leader? No. I have to read books. I have to learn. I have to, consult people like you. And I have to be able to continue these interviews because I learn as much from these as my audience does.
Yep.
And, maybe you don't, you know, agree with everything, but you adapt what you like and you make it your own. And
A really good strategy. We've got the best leaders. And by the way, people ask, are leaders made or are they born? And the answer is yes. We all have skills or natural talents that can help us. But at the end of the day, you got to learn it all.
Right.
I would say that the best leaders I've ever met to a person
Mm-hmm.
are both learners and readers, without question. And so having a podcast like this, Rob, is a great service to all of the audience and to the entrepreneurs who are listening and watching, because, if they will continue to watch and listen, and if they will find one or two ideas from each of your guests, you're providing a huge service to people. And that's an honor to be part.
Show the book again.
I'm sorry?
Show the book.
Long Distance Teammate, longdistanceteammate.com. One before that, Long Distance Leader, longdistanceleaderbook.com. Those are the last two of 7 or 8 books. And we'd be happy to have people take a look. And Rob, it's been a pleasure to be with you.
And I tell you what, and this is going to be a special bonus. If you buy Kevin's both books, Leader and Teammate, let me know, and I will throw in a bonus book from my library free of charge.
Perfect. How about that, everybody?
And so if you don't have any of my books, this is the opportunity to get one. If you have some and I send you a bonus book, you already read it, give it to a friend.
Absolutely. Awesome.
So, this is why I like Kevin, because he's helping you guys become the leaders that you need to be, and it's not always about just bossing people around. That doesn't work. I know, I tried. It's about, getting to know your teammates, getting to appreciate them, because in the end, they're working for the benefit of you and your business, but they're also feeding their families. And that's, at the end of the day, it's all about, that family unit and keeping them together. So anything you want to add?
No, I appreciate, Rob, the chance to have been here and to share with you and enjoy this conversation with you. I always figure on my podcast, if I enjoy the conversation, that other people will. So I enjoyed this. So I hope everybody else that is watching and listening has.
So if you enjoyed this, let us know. If you get Kevin's books, let me know, and you get a freebie book from me. So thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode. Adios.